Marcus needs it more than you do, Emma. He has 3 kids to support. My mother's voice was firm as she slid the inheritance papers across the kitchen table. I stared at the documents, my hands trembling slightly as I processed what I was seeing. The family beach house, the investment portfolio, even my grandmother's antique jewelry collection. Everything my grandparents had specifically left to me was being redistributed to my brother's family. My name is Emma Sullivan, and at 34, I was watching my parents casually give away my inheritance to my younger brother Marcus, his wife Olivia, and their children. The same brother who'd spent his entire adult life making impulsive decisions and relying on our parents to bail him out. "You're single, focused on your marine biology research," my father added, not meeting my eyes. "Your brother has real responsibilities." I looked around my childhood home's kitchen, where so many family memories had been made. The same kitchen where my grandmother had taught me to bake, telling me stories about our family's history while showing me how to make her famous apple pie. Now, sitting here, I felt like a stranger. "Have you even looked at Grandma and Grandpa's will?" I asked quietly. "They specifically left these things to me." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "They didn't expect Marcus to have such a large family to support. Times change, Emma. We need to adapt." I thought about the last conversation I'd had with my grandfather before he passed away 6 months ago. He called me to his study, away from the rest of the family. "Emma," he'd said, his voice weak but his eyes sharp as ever, "there's something you need to know about your inheritance. Not everything is listed in the official will." Before he could tell me more, Marcus had burst in, demanding help with some financial crisis or another. It was the last private moment I had with my grandfather. "Sign the papers, Emma," my father urged. "Don't make this difficult. Your brother needs a stable home for his kids, and that beach house is perfect for them." The beach house, my sanctuary, the place where I conducted most of my marine research, studying the local ecosystem and working on my conservation projects. The home I'd maintained and improved over the years while Marcus hadn't visited once since our grandparents passed. "And what about my research?" I asked. "My work depends on that location." Olivia, who had been quietly watching from the doorway, stepped forward. "You can always find another spot for your little fish projects," she said with a condescending smile. "The kids need a summer home." I felt something shift inside me. Years of being the responsible one, the understanding one, the one who always stepped aside for Marcus's needs. It all crystallized into a moment of perfect clarity. I remembered my grandfather's words, his unfinished message. "Okay," I said simply, picking up the pen. My mother's relief was palpable. "I knew you'd understand, sweetie. You always do." I signed the papers with a steady hand, surprising myself with my own calmness. My father quickly gathered them up, as if afraid I might change my mind. "We'll help you move your research equipment out next weekend," he said, not asking when I might be available. "Marcus and Olivia want to start renovating right away." I stood up, gathering my things. "No need," I replied. "I'll have everything out by tomorrow night." As I walked to my car, I heard Olivia's excited chatter about turning my research room into a playroom for the kids. Marcus was already talking about selling some of grandmother's jewelry to fund the renovations. But they didn't know what I knew. After leaving my parents' house, I drove straight to my grandfather's old law firm. Mr. Patterson, his attorney for 40 years, was expecting me. "I wondered when you'd come," he said, pulling out a thick envelope. "Your grandfather left this for you, with strict instructions not to mention it until you came asking." Inside was a letter, written in my grandfather's shaky hand. "My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then what I feared has happened. Your parents have always favored Marcus, even when it hurt you. But I've watched you grow into an extraordinary woman, dedicated to your work and to preserving our world's oceans. You remind me so much of your grandmother. What your parents don't know, what no one knows, is that the beach house and the items listed in my official will are just a small part of your inheritance. The real treasure, the one that truly matters, is waiting for you. Mr. Patterson has all the details. Remember, my girl, sometimes losing everything is the first step to finding something greater. Love, Grandpa." I looked up at Mr. Patterson, who was smiling knowingly. "Ready to see what your grandfather really left you?" he asked. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, I smiled too. "Yes," I said. "I think I am." Mr. Patterson led me into his private office, pulling out a large folder marked Sullivan Legacy, Private Holdings. As he spread the documents across his desk, I felt my breath catch. Your grandfather, he explained, owned a chain of private islands off the coast. Small ones, but ecologically significant. He purchased them 30 years ago when they were considered worthless. Now they're home to some of the most diverse marine ecosystems in the region. I stared at the photographs and documents, 3 pristine islands, each with its own unique ecosystem. More importantly, each came with fully equipped research facilities, built gradually over the years without anyone in the family knowing. He followed your work closely, Mr. Patterson continued. Every paper you published, every conservation project you started. He used your research to decide how to develop these islands. The main facility is actually larger than your lab at the beach house. My hands trembled as I looked through the facility specifications. State-of-the-art marine research equipment, sustainable housing units, even a small dock for research vessels. Everything I could have dreamed of, and more. But why didn't he tell anyone? I asked, still trying to process the magnitude of this inheritance. Mr. Patterson smiled, pulling out another document. He knew your parents' tendency to redistribute family assets to Marcus. These islands are in a protected trust. They can't be sold or transferred to anyone outside of your direct control. And there's more. He handed me another envelope, this one containing bank statements. My eyes widened at the numbers. A separate research fund, he explained, enough to fund your projects for the next decade at least. Again, protected in a trust that only you can access. As I sat there, surrounded by proof of my grandfather's faith in me, I thought about my parents sitting in their kitchen, probably congratulating themselves on how they'd handled the situation. I thought about Marcus and Olivia, planning to transform my research space into a playroom. When can I take possession? I asked. Immediately. The staff has been maintaining the facilities, waiting for you. Your grandfather was quite insistent that everything be ready when the time came. Over the next week, I quietly moved my research equipment from the beach house. I hired a professional team, had them sign NDAs, and worked at night to avoid attention. My parents, assuming I was just accepting their decision as usual, didn't check on me. The first time I set foot on the main island, I nearly cried. The research facility was beyond anything I could have imagined. The labs were perfectly designed, the equipment was top of the line, and the location offered access to marine environments I'd only dreamed of studying. The head of the maintenance staff, James, greeted me with a knowing smile. Your grandfather spoke about you often, he said. He was so proud of your work. He spent years planning this, making sure everything would be perfect for you. I spent the next 2 weeks setting up my new lab, transferring my research, and exploring the islands. Each day brought new discoveries, new possibilities. I found handwritten notes from my grandfather in various places, little messages of encouragement and pride that made me feel his presence. Then came the call I'd been expecting. My mother, her voice tight with controlled anger. The renovation crew arrived at the beach house today, she said. All your equipment is gone. Where is everything? I moved it, I replied simply, as requested. But where? Your department says you've left the university. What are you doing, Emma? I could hear Marcus in the background, demanding to know if I'd taken anything else, probably worried about the jewelry he planned to sell. I'm continuing my research, I said. Don't worry about me. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You're acting like a child. Just tell us where you've moved everything. No, I said firmly. I don't think I will. You wanted me out of the beach house, and I'm out. The rest is no longer your concern. I ended the call and turned back to my work. Through my lab's floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the sun setting over the ocean, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. On my desk sat a framed photo of my grandfather and me, taken years ago during one of our beach walks. You were right, Grandpa, I whispered to the photo. Sometimes losing everything is just the beginning. My phone kept buzzing with messages from family members. Marcus demanding to know where I'd hidden our grandmother's jewelry, which was safely stored in my new home. Exactly where it belonged. Olivia complaining that my dramatics were ruining their renovation plans. My father attempting to guilt me into revealing my new location. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the research proposal I was drafting. With the resources now at my disposal, I could finally pursue the large-scale conservation project I'd always dreamed of. My grandfather had given me more than just islands and facilities. He'd given me the freedom to pursue my passion without compromise. As I worked late into the night, surrounded by the gentle sound of waves and the quiet hum of advanced equipment, I felt truly at peace for the first time in months. But this was just the beginning of my story. 3 months later, my research made headlines in major scientific journals. Groundbreaking marine conservation study reveals new species read the headlines. My work, conducted on my private research islands, had identified 5 previously unknown marine species and established a new method for coral reef restoration. The morning the news broke, my phone exploded with messages, not just from colleagues and fellow researchers, but from my family. They'd finally discovered where I'd been and what I'd been doing. Private research islands? My mother's voice was shrill when she finally got through. How is this possible? Where did you get the funding for all this? Grandpa, I said simply. He left me more than just a beach house. The silence on the other end was deafening. I could almost hear her piecing it together. All those years Grandpa had spent puttering around with his investments as she dismissed it. The frequent trips he'd taken to check on properties that no one had questioned. Why didn't you tell us? She finally managed. Like you told me about deciding to give away my inheritance? I countered calmly. Besides, this was Grandpa's wish. He wanted me to have a place where my work couldn't be taken away or dismissed as little fish projects. Later that day, Marcus and Olivia showed up at my university office, having tracked me down through the publication. This isn't fair, Marcus declared, waving a printout of the article. You've been hiding all this while we've been struggling with beach house renovations. I looked up from my work, taking in their designer clothes and Olivia's new jewelry, probably purchased with the sale of our grandmother's antiques. Struggling? I raised an eyebrow. From your social media posts, it looks like you've been having quite the luxurious summer. That's different, Olivia interjected. We have children to think about. They deserve the best. And I have endangered species to think about, I replied. They deserve a chance at survival. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a video conference with the National Marine Conservation Board. Their expressions as they left my office were priceless, a mixture of anger, jealousy, and the dawning realization that they underestimated me completely. The final confrontation came a week later when my parents insisted on seeing the islands. I agreed, but on my terms. The research boat picked them up at dawn, and as we approached the main island, I watched their faces. This is incredible, my father whispered, taking in the state-of-the-art facilities. I gave them a tour, showing them the labs, the conservation areas, and finally my office. There, prominently displayed, was the photo of Grandpa and me, along with all my research awards and publications. Your grandfather planned all this? My mother asked, her voice small. He did, I confirmed. He believed in my work, even when no one else in the family did. He made sure I would have everything I needed to succeed. We've always believed in you, my father protested weakly. No, I said firmly. You've always expected me to step aside for Marcus. To be understanding, to give up what's mine for the greater good of the family. Grandpa was the only one who saw me for who I really am. As if on cue, one of my assistants rushed in. Dr. Sullivan, the new coral reef implementation is showing amazing results. We're ready when you are. My parents watched as I confidently gave directions, coordinated with my team, and managed multiple aspects of the research facility. Gone was their understanding daughter who always gave in. In her place stood a respected scientist, a leader in her field. We were wrong, my mother finally said as they prepared to leave. About everything. Yes, you were, I agreed. But that's okay. I'm exactly where I need to be. As their boat pulled away from the island, I felt a profound sense of peace. My grandfather's gift hadn't just been the islands or the facilities, it had been the chance to prove my worth on my own terms. 6 months later, my research facility hosted an international marine biology conference. Scientists from around the world came to learn about our conservation methods. Marcus and Olivia's beach house renovations had gone over budget, forcing them to sell it. Meanwhile, my work was making real change in the world. Standing on the observation deck of my research facility, watching the sunset over my islands, I held Grandpa's last letter in my hands. Sometimes losing everything is the first step to finding something greater, he'd written. He was right. In losing what I thought was my inheritance, I gained something far more valuable, not just success, but the confidence to stand up for myself and my dreams. My phone buzzed with another message from my mother, asking if they could visit again. This time, I smiled as I replied. They could visit, but on my terms. After all, these islands weren't just an inheritance, they were my legacy. One I earned through not just my grandfather's faith, but my own determination to succeed.